Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is May the 21st, and I appreciate you being here. We're going to be talking a little bit about this Sean Ryan show / Tucker Carlson collab, right? I guess it was a Tucker Carlson show where Sean Ryan popped up. I listened to something in there and it hit me like right at my core. And it was talking about production and how Sean launched his podcast and what it took to actually get into that seat. I'm having that day right now, except he introduced himself to the world with 9 interviews in a year. And somehow I managed to pull off one of these stupid things every single morning. So what I want to say is I'm behind the 8 ball when it comes to timing today, because you can't actually do a great job of scripting and editing, and I don't do a script per se, but I do have an outline of what I'm going to cover and creating all the visuals. Doing all of that in a couple hours every morning under the gun, it is like the joy that I have because I'm a deadline kind of guy. But man, it is really, today was a challenge because I was trying to cut up some video and I actually chopped some stuff out of there. I actually took something away deep into the interview that most of you probably did not see or think about or even consider that heavily. And I'm going to introduce you to that. We got some more sort of info going on with the Bureau, but let me kind of hit you with a couple of topics. Today's theme seems to be more like a crime and a punishment situation. And the Democrats are crying weaponization about the FBI, about the DOJ. I'm going to show you some ways that those things can be used properly, in so much as the way that our federal law enforcement is supposed to operate, what they're supposed to do. So we got a couple stories about that. How it can be used to remind them that you don't actually want a tit for tat America where whenever the political football changes hands and a new person gets into the White House, they just go after their political enemies. And so you've got to make people who are quote unquote political enemies pay for that. That's actually not the worst thing in the world. It's a dark strategy. It's deeply cynical, but we will talk about that. Got a couple other little crime and punishment type stories out there. Electricity and the cost of energy. And then we're going to talk about the quote unquote big, beautiful bill, which I actually despise because I just hate the idea that we're going to be spending more and more money, that our kids are going to be inheriting a debt that's worse than what we inherited and what, our parents gave to us and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of there's a lot of junk. And then more like just sort of like mealy mouthed Mike Johnson. They're cutting $1 trillion. I was trying to figure out why Mike Johnson was focusing in on the entitlements nonsense. And then I realized that Democrats just run the narrative like they do on so many other things. A couple little pieces about Biden in here. So I got a blast of smattering of what's going on out there in the world. We're going to kind of gather it all and try to make some sense of it as best we can. That's what I'm going to do with you today. So that's where we're going. Now you've been told. Let's start with a sponsor. Today's sponsor, starting right off the bat, is the folks over at Undertac. Yes, it's an underwear company, and one that actually made me consider whether or not I needed different underwear than I've been wearing for 16 years. And the surprise is that I actually liked them. I don't usually like it when people send me random things to wear. I'm pretty particular. So Undertac is the world's best boxer brief, and they're designed for special operators, people who do the hardest jobs in the hardest places like Africa. Undertac isn't just underwear. It's a tactical gear that's built for tough missions, and it's a worldwide capability that you can put on whether you are going to be hanging out on your couch or whether you're going to be out there shooting at the range or whether you're going to be Steve Friend and you're doing a multi-day mission with several little secured almonds tucked in to the waistband. Yes, there is a secret little pocket that's built in for what they call E&E, escape and evasion. That is part of the SEER program. You might need it. If you're Steve Friend, you can live on a couple almonds. You can actually keep like several days worth of like meals ready to eat. Otherwise, you might be keeping things like a crypto wallet in there. You might keep emergency cash for when the stakes are high, or you need to like hide money from yourself because you're playing blackjack and you know better than losing everything you have. You can pair them up with their American-made merino wool socks. You can wear their Urban Ops hoodie. These are tough-built, tactical type things that can be used anywhere in your life. Like I said, from relaxing to shooting, take your pick. Right now, the promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E, will get you 25% off an order of 4. In other words, buy 3, get 1 free. That's the way the math works out. This is also true for the girls the women's booty shorts or whatever they're called. I think they're called the sortie shorts. I tried it this morning because I wanted to see. So they actually do have products for women if you guys want to go check those things out. They look comfy, but what do I know about wearing women's underwear? The answer is nothing. I actually know nothing about it whatsoever. There might be some people in Congress that do. Kyle Seraphin's not the guy that can give you that opinion. In any case, if you buy 3, you get 1 free. That's basically your whole week's worth of laundry right up front. That's the way that men think about things. You can secure your junk. You can complete your mission. You can support American heroes because they give back to veteran-run groups that go after human trafficking, which is big in the news. Again, undertac.com. Use that promo code KYLE. That's a lot of words to get started. Let's dive into this. By the way, that is a very cool visual. If you guys have not seen, they have a neat-looking website. There's like a dude on a tactical, stuff like that. All right, let's dive into today's show. Here we go. One of the other things that hit me on the Sean Ryan interview with Tucker was that he was talking about how he taught his wife how to do some things. And that sounds really cool in my life, too. I would love to be able to teach either my wife or my kids, but my kids are too young, which means that my wife can't break away from them, which means she's not going to be learning this. So it's just me, 100% full speed. Let's start with a fun, kind of goofy story from Fox News. Why not? Fox News says the 5th inmate from the New Orleans jail is recaptured after several days on the run. They escaped out on Friday. Apparently, a local worker inside the prison helped 10 guys get out. They've now caught 5 of them. That's Louisiana justice for you. Actually, Louisiana has always had kind of a harsh reputation for law enforcement and getting on the wrong side of things. These are some of the guys that got out, and some of them have been recaptured. Again, half of them have a pretty interesting mixture of all black guys. First of all, it was 10 black guys. I don't know why that's relevant, but it is relevant and it is something to note. So they're only locking up black guys, or that's who's there, or that's who wanted to escape. Some of these guys did not seem like they had charges that would be worth trying to do an escape for, because you're eventually going to get recaught. This is America. I don't know that we have prison breaks where someone got away Andy Dufresne style and went down to live in Zihuatanejo or whatever the heck the name of the little Mexican town was. That just doesn't happen. You're going to get rounded up eventually, most likely, except when you see who is in charge of the effort to go after them. Then you start thinking like, well, maybe you could get away with it. I'll play a little video of her in just a second. But so you know, these people were caught for everything. Some of these guys were convicted murderers. Some of them were in jail for like unlawful possession of a weapon, which is actually a much smaller charge. They have various different degrees of criminality: illegal weapons possession, obstruction of justice, bringing contraband into prison. So I guess that was a 26-year-old guy who's still at large. 2 of the guys that are at large right now have been convicted of multiple counts of second-degree murder. So that's not fantastic. They're out there running around. And then one guy was for like a home invasion, a burglary, plus carrying a weapon by a felon, blah, 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 motor vehicle theft. Like, not great guys. At least we have Louisiana's finest. I'm going to put this in your head right now, right up front, as you listen to this clip. And by the way, if you're not seeing this clip and you have not seen this clip, it's actually worth tuning in right now. So we're probably, like 6 minutes into the podcast. Check this clip out, find it somewhere so you can see what a clownish cartoon human being is in charge of giving this briefing. This woman they look kind of like the night vision goggles that the kids wore in the first Jurassic Park. You remember they were like a helmet and they had green, like neon green rotating things, which no night vision would have on the outside. I don't know why they had those. They look good for Hollywood, I guess. She's wearing these crazy glasses, like a complete goofball. And then she sounds, and you guys tell me if you're from Louisiana, is this a Cajun accent? Because she sounds like the Calypso, like gypsy witch from Pirates of the Caribbean, where she's like, a touch of destiny there, Jack, or whatever. Anyway, this lady is going to give the briefing. I saw this the other day and I held on to it, and I'm glad I did, so now I can share it with you.
Good afternoon, all. I am Major Stephanie Minter Gibson, and I oversee the Crime Victims Unit for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. Once I was notified about the escapees, I immediately gathered a team of experienced staff, and we started calling victims and survivors just to make sure that they are aware of what was going on and that they are safe. For the records that had no information, I immediately reached out to our partners. Partners such as NOPD Special Victims Unit, Detective Walton, who was very grateful in helping us, and she provided us with other information that we were able to call those families and help them as well. Once we finished the first batch of victims, we started calling the second batch. And actually, the reason why I'm saying that is because I separated them. The chief from the DA's office, victims, Alison Morgarder, reached out to me, and we both were calling victims.
We were calling victims because it called to us the gold. I don't know. Like, it's got a Pirates of Caribbean sound to me. I just can't take that lady seriously. The fact is that she's using sort of like slang, pidgin, Cajun, something dialect. It's like, you don't have anybody that could go out there and convey some more, maybe some more confidence to the public that you're going to catch these people. It just was, it's kind of a clown show. And then as a complete contrast to that, and I'm just going to leave that where it is. Like I said, there's 5 escapees that are running around in Louisiana. If you want to go find the pictures of them and keep an eye out for them, knock yourself out. But some of them seem like they're pretty dangerous. In a complete contrast, we got stuff like this. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is a headline. It comes from my folks over at Catholic Vote, still my buddies, whether you guys know that or not. We're not working with them explicitly, but I'll always be really grateful to them. And they've got good news coverage, and I still get it every morning. I still get the loop. So it says a U.S. federal jury last week found a former Haitian gang leader. Some of you in the chat were saying maybe that lady was Haitian. I don't know, and neither do you, probably. Guilty. This guy was found guilty of kidnapping 16 American Christian missionaries and 1 Canadian missionary, which we just went ahead and rescued anyway and took care of, I guess. In October of 2021, press release from the DOJ says this person, Jermaine Jolly, leader of the Haitian 400 Mawazo gang, helped administer, orchestrate, take your pick, the kidnapping of these 17 Mennonite missionaries from Ohio. So that's good. That's what you're actually supposed to see. What's crazy is there are weird little places where you see massive efficiency, very competent people. I actually know the guy that would have been responsible for this exact job for the FBI, going out and interfacing internationally, going back into like the early 2000s. And Ken was an outstanding human being, like everything that you kind of hope that we had people in the FBI doing. He was a military veteran. He spoke another language. He married a woman from another culture because he fell in love with that culture. And then he went back into those areas and raised his kids there and was interfacing with local police in the ways that you would. And he was investigating like the weirdest stuff. He was the case agent on the Natalie Holloway murder. Told me he thought he knew where she was buried and realized like how corrupt it was. Like a really cool, interesting, humble and competent human being who never aspired, it turns out, to management. That's the other fun thing about these people. The folks that are inside our law enforcement agencies, anybody who knows anything about the way police offices work, sheriff's departments, and so on, there's a small fraction of people that become management or leadership and also really, really understand the mission. Most of the people that go do that are doing it about themselves. They want a higher paycheck. They want more responsibility. They want a bigger title. They would like to feel really good about themselves. And so they're going to do it through status and moving up in a command structure and having people follow them. But the people that showed up to do law enforcement for law enforcement's sake oftentimes do not seek management positions. So the best people are at the bottom and they're out there doing the work. And maybe they find some really neat way where they can go and be part of something like what's called the ALAT program or the LEGAT program for the Bureau, where they go overseas and they interface with local law enforcement and they help train those guys up and get them equipment. My buddy was telling me that the places that he worked, like the Dominican Republic, they didn't even have holsters. They were just given a gun and a belt and been like, knock yourself out. Here's a crappy uniform. Go fight crime, which is 100% why those people take bribes and are corrupt. So he would buy them holsters. He would go to the federal government in the United States. And that's actually a pretty good use of like, not USAID money. That's the use of like the American federal taxpayers' dollars. If we want to get outcomes like occasionally arresting somebody in Haiti, bringing them here and letting them stand trial for going after Americans and deterring them in the future. One of the ways you would do that is like you would give holsters and equipment, things that cost very, very little and can buy a ton of loyalty and make these people able to do the job. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting. It's just always fun to see where you see these, triumphs and tragedies and sort of the failures and then also like small little successes. To say that something should be completely disbanded and you don't understand that there's some value in it. I do understand that there's value in a lot of different levels of law enforcement, to include federal. I also try to do this cost-benefit analysis and say, is it worth it? Is it worth it to have this happen? And at the same time, like, we have a crazy weaponized thing domestically. I don't know. Like, it makes me really uncomfortable. Makes me uncomfortable because guys like this used to run it. James Comey, this is an NBC story, back in the crosshairs. He's in Trump's crosshairs, allegedly. Supposedly, they think that there's some investigation into him. This stems from the Secret Service actually visiting him. Having a Secret Service agent go and talk to Jim Comey about whether or not he intended to assassinate the president is a really silly use of resources if you thought it was about determining whether or not Jim Comey was trying to assassinate the president. But if it's about sending the message that we're going to go after people that were political figures, and Jim Comey was definitely that, if it's about saying that there is an accountability standard and tit for tat is going to happen at like people who have a high enough profile that they can afford it, and it should make them very uncomfortable. Remember, they went after Roger Stone, right? They went after Peter Navarro. They put Steve Bannon in prison. Normally speaking, those people would kind of be off limits because, you know, these are in the political class. The Democrats broke that glass pane, so I can understand jumping through that window and making Jim Comey have to deal with it, as long as we're really explicitly understanding what it is that we're walking through. If you understand what room you're jumping through that window into, it's a real dark place. Again, it's passing a football back and forth and say who's in the executive office and gets to decide who's going to be punished this year. That's kind of a gross America to live in. It's a dark and cynical place. Read a little bit of this. He makes comment on the fact that he had the Secret Service visit him. He sparked a firestorm on the right. It is irresponsible for what he did. And he knew exactly what he was doing, and he's getting all the publicity. I'm not even going to play the clip that he did again. He's, now it says, Comey, as talkative and confident as ever. Why would that be? Why would he be talkative and confident? Is it because he's selling a book? He's doing a publicity tour, and he lives in zero fear of actual, prosecution there? The answer just generally is yes. It's from his Instagram picture showing the shells. He brushes aside the chance that he might face criminal charges. When I tell you that Jim Comey is too smart to get caught in an actual criminal case there, they can investigate him all they want. They're not going to bring this. Where are they going to be able to bring it forward? Nowhere that it's going to be successful. Then he compliments the Secret Service because he's Jim Comey, so he knows how to play the game. He says they were total pros, and maybe this will all go away, and it will, because there's no way they can actually charge him with anything of value there. He doesn't meet the statute, unfortunately for you guys. There's things he probably did, and we're going to cover some of those things. Remember, Jim Comey, who I am totally okay with being uncomfortable for a little while, based on what he did to America, Jim Comey is not going to face the kind of justice that you guys think that's going to end up like locked up in a Louisiana prison in the same way, because he's too smart for that. And he always was. But he did do things that people should be upset about. Remember, he was part of this. This goes to 2017. The reason why you have this Nancy Pelosi versus Nancy Pelosi versus Nancy versus Nancy clip, which is 2017 to 2024, the reason why I can play you this clip is because Jim Comey began with allowing Crossfire Hurricane under his watch. Remember, that's the reason why he doesn't work there anymore, why he didn't finish out his 10-year term. It's the reason why we ended up with Chris Wray, who just did more of the same. And so it brought us to yesterday, the Kennedy Law number 1. And Kennedy Law number 1 is, no matter who you make the director of the FBI, you get Jim Comey. You get the guy on the screen right now. I'm going to give you some more evidence of that because we're not going to let this thing go from that interview that was released over the weekend. It's really bad. And a lot of people, I think, across both social media and in the public space that hear it, they're all starting to see it. Like, bigger voices are starting to join the camp that I've been in for quite a while now, which is not a camp I want to live in, folks. I just don't. Anyway, it started with this kind of stuff. Jim Comey enabled this lady.
I want to know what the Russians have on Donald Trump. I think we have to have that investigation by the FBI into his financial, personal, and political connections to Russia. What do the Russians have on Donald Trump, politically, financially, and personally? What does Vladimir Putin have on President Trump, personally, politically, financially, in any way? What does he have on Donald Trump? I think it's probably financial. Either something financial he has on or something on the come.
I don't know what all that means. She got obviously less coherent as she got older. That is the other famous Nancy in Congress that wants everybody to look at her cans. my buddies and I we're gonna end with a thing about a signal chat and like having spicy memes and stuff like that. I've had a Green Beret on here talking about what the team room chat looks like, and it's always kind of dark. My buddies that are former or current federal law enforcement have like the worst things exchanged back and forth. And there was a long discussion about whether or not either Nancy would do if you had to watch a video of somebody, would you do it? And it was like you're gonna get a grab bag. It was either gonna be Nancy Pelosi or it was gonna be Nancy Mace naked because if you guys don't know this, Nancy Mace made a big show about the fact that she was going to show nude pictures of herself on the House floor. That's the serious nation we live in. So we have this cartoon world where Nancy Pelosi's running around with pontoons and there's pictures of her on the beach, and my buddies send me these pictures all the time, and it's really funny. And there's always like they've put her in the cockpit of the Top Gun movies and stuff like that. And then you've got Nancy Mace in real life actually doing memes. And I'll show you the meme, but she's doing the meme where it's like, hey, everybody, look at me. Look at me. I'm a lady. I'm going to do nude pics. Oh, no one wants to make a sex tape with me? I'll just do it on the House floor because I can get away with it. That's crazy. That's the crazy time we're living in. Maybe that's why we have stories like this, I guess. Like I said, crime and punishment is kind of the theme I'm doing today. 24-year-old man arrested because he was posing as a 16-year-old. And he was arrested as, I think, an illegal alien. He wasn't in this country legally. He was a Venezuelan man. I knew that was part of the story here. Pretending to be a 16-year-old high school student in Ohio. The second Ohio contact we had today. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe God's telling us something. His name is Anthony Emmanuel Labrador Sierra. He was arrested on Monday as he posed as a teenager in January of 2024. And he started going to high school. He enrolled as a student, claiming that he'd been homeless and he was an immigrant from Venezuela. Of course, they pulled him over and found out that he spoke fluent English. He told the school that he was a subject of, or he was a victim rather, of human trafficking. So then he enrolled and just made up his own birthday. I thought you only did that if you were playing baseball and you were from the Dominican Republic. That's what I do know about sports, is that I feel like there was this big thing about the Dominicans when I was a kid, always lying about their age. They have like a 14-year-old playing in a T-ball league or whatever. In any case, there were people who set up a housing exchange and they let him stay with them. And they got permanent guardianship, and he's actually a 24-year-old dude. He was 22 when he started lying about this stuff and snuck into this high school. In any case, caught, arrested. Look at those 1990s style. He's got the bleach blonde tips. He was trying to be one of the Backstreet Boys, I guess. Just weird. Just weird stuff. I guess that's what law enforcement should be doing, is arresting 24-year-old weirdos that snuck in from Venezuela. Seems fine. They probably have to do this stuff as well. This is the other version of the weaponized version. Again, local crime, local problems, grown man in a high school. National problems, DOJ investigates Andrew Cuomo because he lied to Congress. You know, the thing about lying to Congress is, though, we've got a bunch of people that have been lying to Congress. We got people out there who are currently sitting in the Trump administration that have probably lied to Congress. We've had people that have skirted the issue. We had Jim Comey probably lie to Congress. I'm not worried about him telling people that the Secret Service are putting shells up. How about the actual documented lies that guys like him and Chris Wray went out there and propagated? How about Mayorkas, right? How about Fauci? How about actually lying to Congress if you're going to investigate Andrew Cuomo? That seems like kind of like strange fruit to go after and kind of like weirdly irrelevant. The Justice Department has supposedly opened an investigation into former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo concerning his testimony about COVID-19. It seems like something that they've mostly been trying to stay away from in the Trump administration. The investigation comes after the DOJ dropped charges against the current New York City Mayor, Eric Adams. Both Adams and Cuomo are running for mayor. Doesn't look shady, does it? Kind of a little quid pro quo there. Is that how you give your new buddy Eric Adams like a slight bump by investigating the other guy? Honestly, in a Democrat area where the quote unquote Trump DOJ is going to investigate you, that probably works in the favor of the person being investigated, because we're so stupid at this point. We're all just being manipulated left and right. I've got a little clip here that shows you kind of how stupid things are and what people are willing to argue in favor of. You'll remember Abrego Garcia, or whatever his name is, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He had a champion that was thinking he might run for a higher office, I have to imagine. It's a senator from Connecticut. Senator. He's from Maryland, I believe. Let me double check on Van Hollen again. Now it's escaping me. What I do have is a fun clip of him disagreeing with his vote in favor of Marco Rubio. He's really upset about it. Marco Rubio starts pointing out the reasons why he did what he did with USAID, and apparently that's the contentious point in this little clip here. And then you literally have Democrats that are saying, we want whatever the opposite of what you're doing is, even if what you're doing is something that if you were to ask probably almost any American, including lefties, even the most unhinged people are probably not voting in favor of the things that Marco Rubio is highlighting that USAID was doing with money. We're so stupidly tribal that we're just going to blindly follow one thing or another. Like I say, it may not be the boost that they think it is unless they're trying to get Andrew Cuomo into the to be mayor of New York. Here we go. Ready? Let's see what happens when you have a little like gentleman's fight on a subcommittee hearing with Marco Rubio in front of him.
I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's
about
just
your
a
record and
flippant
what you
statement,
stand
Mr.
for.
Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You
Mr.
may.
Chairman?
I didn't
Okay.
ask
Senator,
question.
please let the secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add. Your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman-
Secretary, please.
Well, I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
I raised
don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I
for
raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I
not
respond, Mr.
Mozambique.
Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose
railing
to
on-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my
suspend
time that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come,
Mr.
you're going to see
Chairman,
who you went to
look,
defend.
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments
Senator,
like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
It's more of that liar moment. Like, I object, Your Honor, because what he's saying really hurts my feelings and it destroys my argument. Good for Rubio. He actually does seem like way less polished, which means more honest and regular. I wonder if Trump had that conversation with people and just went like, stop trying to church up your language. Stop trying to pretend. Stop doing what Mike Johnson does, which is like, well, I really, like everything I have is on a spreadsheet and I could write it down like this. Marco Rubio actually sounds like a real person there, which is nice because a lot of times for years I've been listening to him and going like, that sounds really greasy, kind of slimy, kind of politician-y. It sounds like somebody polled whether or not those words sounded good and whether or not they were offensive at anybody, and nobody was offended, so you were allowed to say it. I think he hurt some feelings with that. Good. And also, whatever the hell that stuff is, social cohesion in Mali or whatever the heck he just said, what is that? Why are we putting any money there? How do you get $270,000 for your YouTube channel? We could take that over on YouTube. Our folks over on YouTube wouldn't be mad if we were able to do more stuff over there, I'm sure. If you want to pay for some small channel that no one's ever heard of, let's do it. Let's go. Obviously, I wouldn't take that because I have like a moral problem with how stupid that sounds. But, you know, it's a thing. Apparently that was done with our money. We should all be aware of that. So we're going to continue on this idea that nobody should be celebrating weaponization per se, but there should be consequences. And I do think that's what we voted for with accountability and that we were going to move some of these things forward. I had this story that just popped up, and since I was going to be doing a sponsor read for them, I thought I might highlight it. I don't always see stories in the news, but they do happen about once a month every so. And so it's part of the way that our advertiser has brought this stuff up. These are the folks at Patriot Protect. Remind me that there's always data breaches. And when I see them, I'm going to call them out to you just because like we may not see them. This wasn't the biggest story, but it was on the front page, and I believe it came from NBC. It came from NBC. A 19-year-old has been accused of the largest child data breach in the United States, agreeing to plead guilty to federal charges. Massachusetts man agreed to plead guilty, obtaining information from a protected computer, aggravated identity theft. This kind of stuff is ubiquitous. A guy named Matthew Lane. There's a good sort of like white collar name is what we would call that. He's 19 years old from Worcester County, Massachusetts, signed a plea deal. He was connected to a major hack on the educational technology company, and I believe that's what this picture is, this Power School, which was moving education forward. It's just a reminder that nonstop, there are people that are trying to compromise like everything you work for, including even your kids before they get out into the workforce. If they can get their social security numbers, their addresses, their email addresses that they've used as kids, you're not even safe then. So just be real cautious about what your kids are doing online, how much information they're putting out there, and how much of a victim. The sad thing is if you have them in schools where our government is paying for stuff like this was quote unquote leading cloud software for K through 12. If you have your kids working and studying and doing things online, like they have the potential of having their picture and all of their information leaked. And some 19-year-old kid could have done it too. So we'll talk about our friends over at Patriot Protect right now. I think maybe kids are a little young for enrolling them, but just be aware, it's not a particularly expensive solution. If you're a grown-up, your stuff's out there, okay? So we just read a great news story telling you about how there can be data breaches of all kinds, all the way down K through 12. Doesn't sound fun. If you think you're not affected, obviously even our kids can be affected, so there's a good reason not to discount this stuff. Names, email addresses, relatives, social security, work history, passwords you've used, all these things can be attacked and grabbed by cyber criminals, and it gives them what they need to target you at any age, it turns out. The minute you're an adult, they have access to things like that. So Patriot Protect uses the blackout service to search the dark web, find out if people are trying to sell that. That's usually what kids are doing. That's why somebody would going after this information. It goes to all the people search sites that are out there that scammers use to hunt for victims. And they use a search and destroy protocol to try to wipe your internet information out there. So it's not easily accessible and low-hanging fruits. It's about the same cost as keeping your porch light on. When you use my promo code, it's KYLE. You're going to save 15% on an annual subscription. I use it. My wife uses it. It's one of those things that you just kind of put in the back pocket. You may not need medical insurance, which is something I had an interesting discussion about online the other day. But having insurance that costs you like a couple of bucks, at the end of the day, if you're spending, I don't know, $5, $6, $7, $8 a month on something, you've probably lost more than that on Amazon packages that didn't work out and you didn't return because you were too lazy to, or maybe that's just in our house here. In any case, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Link is in the show description. Check them out if you guys want to make sure. And as I said, there's always a great example of it. And while we're talking about money and scams and things that go on, let's do another one. This could easily fall into our crime and punishment because we're talking about Congress here. I guess this is the lead story that came out of CNN today. The House GOP lawmakers are proposing $1 trillion in cuts. And of course, they make it emotional and they talk about Medicaid and food stamps. And so I was wondering why Mike Johnson said that the other day. Well, why are we focusing in on why are the Republicans talking about that specifically? And then I realized it's because they're still being driven by this left-wing narrative and the liars that exist in our media. So there you go. House Republicans are looking to slash nearly $1 trillion from two of the nation's bedrock safety net programs, Medicaid and food stamps, as part of their sweeping package aimed at enacting Donald Trump's agenda, aka the big, beautiful bill. The question that we should ask ourselves is, how did we let anybody tell us that these things are bedrock safety net programs and that they have any authorization to do that with our dollars? Because in theory, Republicans are the closest thing we have to represent conservative principles. Conservative principles should be going back to like the thing we want to conserve, aka the way this country was founded. And there's nothing about this country that said you should be safe. There's nothing about this country that said that there should be a safety net. In fact, that all can pretty much be traced back to what FDR did, and then the war on poverty and the Great Society and all of these sort of like transformative, really communistic, socialistic type pushes. America was sort of the Wild West for a good chunk of the way that our country was run. The things that we think of as what made America great, how we became such a powerful nation, is that people got a chance to come here and live and let live, say crazy things, put messages up with shells, but maybe someone beats the hell out of you. And then if they did, then we deal with that too. But free speech with consequences, free association with consequences, the ability to not break the law, but like nobody was going to come out there and just spoon feed you your rights. And then for some reason, over the last 100 years or so, before my time and before your time, we watched a country that got so safe that they tried to make sure that every single person was safe. And then they made sure that eventually no one is going to be safe because our money's going to be worth nothing. And our government is in our business trying to make sure that we're so safe that they actually end up ruining everything that was created. It makes no sense to me. I get that there should be something that takes care of children with disabilities and people who are unable to make it in society if you are a rich nation. That thing is called privately associated church, faith-based communities, people who have individual and private charity, and trying to compel it through a government agency might be one of the dumbest and worst ways. And the idea that the Republicans are the ones that are championing it and out there trying to defend it, it makes me sick because there's nothing conservative about it. Again, you cannot make the argument that Donald Trump is a conservative. You can say that he more or less aligns closer than the alternative, and he does theoretically understand what weaponized government looks like because he was a victim of it. But the answer to weaponized government, generally speaking, isn't turn around and use the same tool, which is the argument that I keep making for folks. The answer to weaponized government is dismantle the flippin' weapons. Have a smaller DOJ or no DOJ. Like the DOJ, you probably can't get rid of. You probably need to have some sort of prosecuting agency. But wouldn't it make sense to make a smaller FBI, DEA, ATF, like Customs and Border Enforcement? All these things are all big, and they have like massive reach into places they never were meant to have it. So wouldn't you want to scale that thing back and make sure that your enemy, when they inherit that weapon, has less weapon to deal with? That's not what they do. Nothing gets smaller. Ronald Reagan told us already. Nothing closer to eternal life than a government program. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But like that's why we have an ATF. They almost got rid of it in the 90s. And then they were like, you know what? They're going to get rid of us. What if we went and killed a dude and his wife and their dog and son, and or maybe we don't kill the guy, maybe just kill his family on accident. Maybe we could screw it up royally and then bring in another federal agency to bail us out. Maybe we'll do that again over in Texas and go after a religious compound because of quote unquote automatic weapons based on some real nonsensical evidence. We'll go and do a splashy raid and use some helicopters and try to get the National Guard involved. Like that would be cool. Oh, we're going to have some people killed. We're going to have a building blown up because we pissed off so many Americans that they don't even know that their government has their best interests in mind. And they still exist. The ATF still exists. They survived the 90s, despite Ruby Ridge and the bombing in Oklahoma City, which was the result of the disgruntled people that were created from the Waco raid. And they could have done it so easily. They could have just scooped them up. But why do something easily when you could do something dumb and people will remember you forever? This big, beautiful bill thing is, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like that nobody should cheer on enormous packages of every single thing and you got to vote for them all at once because it's got 60% of the things you want and 40% of the things that you would basically fight to the death against. And you're like, oh, well, like 60% of what I want's there. That's politics. What a crap system we've developed with all of this stuff. It makes me want to puke. I saw this really funny story. This is actually behind the paywall at CNN. It says the IRS under Trump, the IRS layoffs could lead to billions in lost revenue as agency sheds auditors. And then they have a list of the groups of people that have been downsized, and it's auditors, and it's revenue officers, and it's customer service representatives, and then tax examiners, and then miscellaneous, and then IT management. Those are like the major groups of people who are fired or have been approved to be bought out, and they're going to retire early with the Trump fork. Let me read that headline one more time for you. Trump's IRS layoffs could lead to billions in lost revenue for agency, aka the government. Where does that money come from? I'll just leave it up to you all. Can you tell me, folks, where that money comes from? Because that lost revenue equals money that you earn that stays in your house. Are you kidding me? Lost revenue. How do you write a headline like that when you're a taxpayer? Lost revenue equals Americans keeping more money in their pockets. The same people that are crying about lost revenue are also kind of like strangely okay with no taxes on tips. No taxes on tips. That was something that Trump floated out there. I have no idea why that caught. And apparently it just passed the Senate. No taxes on tips. You know, when people work for tips, generally, at least in my life experience, is what I found. People work for taxes or for no tax on tips. That would be like really helpful to young people. Generally speaking, before you have a salary job or you launch your own business, you might be working for tips. You're working for somebody else at a low-paid job, and you're learning things like customer service skills and how to interact with other people. You understand how to do buying and selling. By the way, are commissions going to be considered tips for salespeople? What about things that I do? Everything I do is like a 1099. Is that just a gift for the thing that I've presented out there? You could make the argument that most of social media money are tips. They're tips for you helping to provide some service to the platform, but they don't directly pay you because they don't have any kind of a contractual agreement. No taxes on tips post. When you take young people and they're all going to earn money on tips or gratuities, and then you don't tax it, you then take them out of the people that have a vested interest in how taxes work. This is the first time that young people get to experience what happens when somebody comes in and reaches into your pocket. And let's say, like I used to work at a restaurant when I was a kid, right? All the way into my early 20s, waiting tables, things like that, bartending, whatever. So somebody spends $100 on a meal with their family and they leave you a $20 bill. And you're like, cool. I just worked for an hour and I put in their order and I was playful and friendly and I made some jokes and I made sure that their kids had the straws that they needed and I brought their drinks refilled and I busted my ass. And so they gave me a $20 bill to say, this is for the service that you provided in bringing the food. I paid for the food, but I tipped for the service. That's the theory. And then when the government reaches in and goes like, hey man, really nice work you just did there. By the way, all that stuff you just did and all the sweat and the grossness and the fry oil that you have on your really nicely cleaned, pressed white uniform that you had to go pay and have dry cleaned or laundered to work at a steakhouse, all of that, we actually get some of it. We're going to actually take $4 to $6 of that $20. When you have a young person that realizes, because they get paid in cash at the end of a night in a bartender cash out situation, for the first time, they have to pay money that they earned, that they took home and they hold on to, the same way that I write a check. Every time I write a check with this new business that I've started, every time I write a check, I hate the government a little bit more. Because I know that I'm not getting whatever I want out of that. Like it's doing other weird things like sending money to somebody else's YouTube channel or helping do circumcisions in Africa. That's your first chance to understand what taxes are about. My friend Brianna Morello mentioned that. Young people getting taxed on tips is their first introduction to the unfairness of taxes in general. Because they had it in their pocket and then they have to give it back. Unless they don't report it, in which case they understand the value of being a tax evader, which is a fundamentally American value. Yeah, you heard it here. It's an American value to not pay the government tips if you can help it out. In the same way, it seems to be an American value to lie as a politician and for the left wing to sit there and spend every single amount of money. This is a tip. This is a tip. Joe Biden getting coverage right now by the leftist media is a tip. It's an in-kind contribution. It has a whole number advertising propaganda value. How about that for weaving this stuff in? And I think it all has to do with crime and punishment. I guess the lesson in crime and punishment is if you can do the crime long enough to get old and sick, then you shouldn't ever have to do the punishment for the crimes that you were involved in for helping destroy the country. Here's a little fun thing of people making the argument that Joe Biden is not president. Do you remember how well that worked? Because we just heard Nancy Pelosi on a little clip earlier talking about Donald Trump, including when Donald Trump was not in office, even if he was running. He wasn't the president. Apparently, if you're no longer the president, if you're no longer in elected office, we can't have a discussion about whether or not you did something wrong or you lied to people. And so here's Scott Jennings just owning a strategy. He's just going to just say things that are true. And you're going to hear nonstop pushback. Luckily, we have some fun clips to be able to go back into history and remember the archives. These people lied in real time all the time. Are those tips? The tip is, I guess, don't get into the media if you want to be a liar. If you want to be an honest person, don't be in the media. Unless you're me. And then you can just, have a small little audience of people who care about hearing things that are honest. and we don't deceive you. More on that in a minute because I've got some fun stuff, like I said, from the Tucker piece that I want to show you. It's a chunk that I dug out of there that I don't think anyone else walked away and realized how significant it was. But the minute you start doing one thing, you can really discredit yourself with folks that are being honest. All right, here's Scott Jennings, who's the only reason to watch CNN as far as I can tell.
Actually, are you arguing that Joe Biden was fine during his
I'm not arguing that he was fine. I'm arguing that
you keep pivoting back to Trump, who's clearly fine. I'm just asking you if you're arguing that something was not wrong with Joe Biden.
I'm so glad you asked that question because Joe Biden is no longer the president.
But he was, and that's the story tonight.
Donald, stop. Let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish something. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I would dearly love to see a cognitive test from him because as somebody who's lived in the New York media market for the last 40 years, I can tell you that the Donald Trump that I knew in the 80s is not the Donald Trump that I hear today.
So your answer to the cover-up is Trump.
My answer is...
Your answer to every question is Trump.
My answer is
the cover-up is the story tonight.
The president
That's the story.
Yes, the cover-up is also the president of the United States, who happens to be Donald J. Trump today, is not... Yeah, you could laugh all you want.
I am definitely laughing.
You know why you're laughing?
We are laughing.
We are laughing. No, we're not laughing. You don't want to answer the question, Scott.
Yeah.
You're president.
What question?
Julie, we're going to leave it there.
I'd love to see his cognitive test. I'd love to see
I'm sure
physical
he'd be
test.
Dr. Grasso.
Sure he would. Right.
He'd be fine. in theory, you shouldn't be able to lie, right? Except in this country, you're allowed to actually state your opinion, again, that you want to cancel Donald Trump or that you want to do any number of other things. You're allowed to state your opinion. Like, that is the America that we want to all live in. And then we're all supposed to have free ideas and we're supposed to be able to discuss them. So theoretically, this lady who's clearly saying things that are ridiculous, she's supposed to be able to have her opinion. The way that you allow that to happen is not to have a bunch of safety nets. What should happen is that there's no money for that network that comes from the federal government or the state government or the local government, and they have to stand on their own 2 feet. And by the way, the companies and the advertisers that support her are also not supposed to be able to get money from the state government and the local government and the federal government. Like, they're not supposed to fund the companies. If we had a real fair system, most of these people probably wouldn't have jobs because the advertisers wouldn't go there, because they wouldn't be interested in pushing a propaganda mission that was favorable to government. This is a circle. This is why it is a self-licking ice cream cone. That analogy that it all exists and it has nothing to do. Remember, what is the purpose of an ice cream cone, right? If you were to go, the analogy is the government is the ice cream cone. It's no longer serving anybody. It's serving the ice cream. It's a self-licking cone. It doesn't require a child. It doesn't require an outside party to come in and buy it. It doesn't require somebody else to want it. It just exists and it feeds itself. That's how you get a tax group. That's how you get people crying about, and I kid you not, if they collect less of your money, then the government will lose revenue. And that revenue is meant to go, that's right, to safety net programs, which are described not at all, not even a little bit of the purpose of the federal government as described by the Constitution has something about a safety net, where people get medical care paid for by other people. There were always doctors that were willing to do house calls for the indigent in their area. There were always people that were willing to fund through private charity and homes and so on, take people in. There were always places, food pantries and charities that were run by individual private citizens who felt like that was the place that they were called to serve fellow man, which is a totally Christian virtue, by the way, serving your fellow man. Taking care of the homeless, taking care of those that are less fortunate than you, looking out for the poor. It's a Christian thing. Isn't it funny that the people who champion the most Christian of values, they want to do it through government because they want to abandon the principles of God? Again, one of the things that I heard Sean Ryan and Tucker Carlson say last night, because I sat down and watched the interview with my wife, was that we are in a spiritual fight, and this is all spiritual. It turns out to be a spiritual thing. And it turns out a piece of that spirituality is actually just acknowledging that the base is, in fact, coming from certain virtues. And it's one of my favorite things to do with leftists is just ask them where their values came from. Why do they think it's important that we take care of poor people and feed them? Why? What makes those poor people valuable? Make them answer the question. Where did they determine that other human beings have innate value? Because it's a fundamentally Christian thing. There's not been a society that does that, as far as I can tell, going back as far as you want. And then they've divorced it from those principles and they've taken it to the self-licking ice cream cone. So now the purpose of the Justice Department is not to do justice. It's to do the bidding of some political animal that's in charge right now. And the purpose of taxes is so that the government can have revenue, not so it's supposed to turn around and serve it. Like, is it not once in that article, by the way, which I read, did it say American people are getting more value from their government than they are actually paying for. And that is unfair. Not once will you ever see the argument that people are getting too much value from their government and they are underpaying for their received benefits. Why are they allowed to do that? Let me bring up one of our sponsors real quick here, and then we're going to go into the fun stuff at the end here, because the fun stuff is like, you know, this is what's been the meat and the potatoes for the last couple of days here. And I think you're hearing it here before you're hearing it from other people, but other people are starting to see it. And that is a little bit reassuring to see that people are not just blindly worshiping heroes in there. Before we go there, let's talk about my friends over at Matt Hat Jerky. This is one of the snacks we eat here. You know, they're like a good old-fashioned American business that was founded by a little kid who walked around and said, what do people like? Jerky. I'm a little kid. I like jerky. Other people like jerky. I'm going to make jerky. Then I'm going to go around and ask people if they would like to give me money, and then I'll give them jerky. That fair exchange, product for value and money. You can go to matthatjerky.com. It's MATTHAT jerky.com/Kyle. Get 20% off your order. If we send you over there, go through and check them out. They might even have a better deal. If you use my webpage going through there with the /Kyle on the end of it, it'll tag. You can even use whatever their new promo codes is. They run special sometimes where they'll give you like 30% off. It's a great deal. It's really good food. Like, it's a good snack. So it's one of the few things that my kids will eat and not fight me about when it comes to giving them protein. I'll get a fight about chicken. I'll get a fight about beef. I'll get a fight about lamb if we were doing lamb. They don't want to eat proteins in general. They're just going to push back, but they'll always eat jerky. I can go put a bag of it. It'll go away. It's great for road trips and car trips and sitting on your desk if you just need something to snack on so you can focus and get your brain working through. matthatjerky.com/KYLE. Check them out. Like I said, totally American thing to do. Go out and decide that you want to change your money for something that you get of value, which you don't get in the government ever, basically ever. It just doesn't happen. I'm going to do one more little push before we move into kind of the final piece, which is my little FBI moment where I'm going to give you some stuff. This story I found quite interesting, and this came from CBS. This is outside of the range of the crime and punishment, and we will end with Nancy Mace. I almost said Nancy Pelosi because both of them, like I said, we'll end with Nancy Cans in a minute. Electricity demand is expected to jump up by more than 75% in 2050 as costs rise, say the reports. So the cost of energy is rising because they've been diluting our money supply. Tom Massey's really good about pointing this stuff out. The fact that we have an ongoing debt and that our money is worth less, apparently nobody cares about that in Congress. So we're going to just kick the can down the road, which is what Massey actually asked to have the bill named. He said, I'd like to amend this bill to be called something like, we're going to do something now and we're going to push the consequences off till later. I have the clip, but I didn't want to play it. It's kind of just like nerd humor. But a dramatic demand for energy, coupled with rising costs, create a massive energy challenge for the United States over the next 2 decades. And so their answer, I think, is that we're supposed to use less energy and be more green or some other nonsense. But the fact of the matter is, and this is something that most of us innately know, every single thing we do today that is convenient uses energy. And so I found this little clip, and I'm pretty sure this is from a propaganda source. For whatever it's worth, I'm fairly confident this is like an energy manufacturer or an energy conglomerate, cooperative or something pushing forward these clips. But I don't think they're wrong about their analysis that as our quality of living has risen in this country since the Industrial Revolution, it's because we've used more energy per capita. And if you want to go to the places that have the crappiest style of living, that are like what we would consider sub-American living standards, they all have less energy capabilities. So energy demand rising by more than 75% says that we're going to be living so good, even the poorest people in America will be living so good that that's actually not a thing we should be scared of. We should just try to figure out how to meet the energy demand. Making it cheaper is better. Maybe deregulating some of the things is better. But of course, that's not what CBS was trying to say when they put this out there. And some of you are seeing that there's a thermostat on the screen here set at its inside temperature is 76, and they're letting it get up to 78 before the AC kicks on. Not in my house, baby. We live in Texas. We keep this down at 70 or 68 if I can help it, because I want to live better, and I don't really care if it means that I have to pay. I'm willing to pay for my comfort. Again, that's that fundamental transaction. You send your money and you get the thing you want. Here's a little an idea to remind you that energy usage is not a bad thing. And it's been made a bad thing in my lifetime, as far as I can tell.
When I looked at the energy use per person since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the energy per person increased about 3% a year over that entire 200-year period.
You can basically track the standard of living and just the general wealth of society based on how much energy that it uses. So when we talk about humans having a higher standard of living and living better and longer lives, we're basically just using more energy. That's fundamentally what's going on. You're using more energy to do more with less. We work fewer hours and we get more out of it. We can experience more of the world. We live longer. We have access to better medical care. That's basically one-to-one with more energy usage.
From the data, it seems like energy punches above its weight. We get a lot more value out of it than we actually spend on it.
That seems utterly reasonable to me. Like I said, I'm fairly confident it's a propaganda thing. The story.inc, I'll attribute where that little clip came from. But that information and that little chopped up way that we like to receive it, the numbers there actually bear out and make sense to me. That if you spent more money on energy than everything that I use now that I didn't used to have that was using energy, they're better. It's more efficient. It's more fun. It's easier. It's more enjoyable. Everything around me is using energy, from my LED lights to my monitors to my soundboard and everything else. All the little gadgets that I have to run the show, they're all energy products. And none of these things existed. And none of these things could be done at the level of cheapness. And they were all created with more energy because we have better manufacturing and we have automation and so on. And we've outsourced a bunch of this stuff other places. Anyway, to places that don't have as much energy use. It turns out. All right. I'm going to give you a little reminder here. This is just, this is going to be segueing into kind of a different piece. We're done with the crime and punishment bit of the show. Today is going to be just a reminder again of some of the things that are going on at my ex-girlfriend that I want you guys to be aware of. And we're going to start with an operational and informational message from the Deputy Director of the FBI, reminding you, including you who are either former or current members of the damn Bonino Army, members, remember this critical thing that Dan used to teach you guys that apparently you just forgot right away.
Do not fall in love with politicians. Fall in love with what? Folks in the chat. Fall in love with what? Outcomes.
Okay. So that's an important rule. That was repeated over and over again. I wasn't the most regular listener to Dan's podcast, but let's be remembering that you're not supposed to fall in love with politicians. Now, he also broke his own rule almost immediately. He did so by, what did he do? He found himself friends with the guy that's now the president. That's why he's the deputy director, as far as I can tell. And so he fell in love with a politician, including when the outcomes are bad, because fiscal conservative Dan Bongino would not like the big, beautiful bill, would not like the idea of asking for more money for an FBI headquarters. And he also wouldn't blindly listen to this statement, which we didn't play from the, somebody accused me of improperly chopping up the Fox News thing. I literally took the entire Fox News interview the other day, and I just skipped through little pieces of it, and I cut out the babble where Maria Bartiromo was saying things. I had multiple FBI agents reach out to me since that came out, and since that interview came out, even the hard lefties inside the Bureau are like, maybe these guys aren't so bad. Do you know how bad it is when your enemies, the people that actually hate the thing that you showed up to do, think that you're not so bad? It means you're not doing the thing that you showed up to do. Now, listen to him describe the investigation. This is talking about the assassination attempts. And this is a lot of words that mean zero things. It also tells me that he doesn't even know what the FBI does yet, which is not surprising because it takes a little while to figure out how the FBI works. He hasn't been there that long. Maybe they should have put somebody in that job that knows how the FBI works. By the way, I don't want to be that guy. I recommended somebody, and it wasn't me. And it's no one whose name you know very well. There are people that could have done this job. It's just not Dan Bongino.
You know what, Maria?
Hold on. Just for 1 second here, if you guys ever want to hear some like body analysis, go look up what a sigh like this means when somebody is asked a question, and both Dan and then Cash sigh, which is why I've been calling them Dash Pongino over on social media. Okay, one more time. We're going to go. Listen, there's a simultaneous sigh here. They both freaking sigh at the question talking about the assassination attempt on Trump.
You know what, Maria? Cash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent, and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't.
That argument is coming from a consulting firm that was founded in the D.C. area, part of the Inside the Beltway crew, one of the self-licking ice cream cone types. And it comes from a consulting firm that's called Trust Me and Bro Consulting, LLC. Because what he just said was, I've gone over the entire case. I've gone over every detail, nugget, and tendril in that case. We're talking about the Butler assassination. He's not allowed to talk about the ongoing prosecution of that guy, Ryan Routh. Do you know how many details, nuggets, or tendrils I saw in my time in the FBI? The answer is going to be zero, because nobody in the Bureau talks about details, nuggets, or tendrils. That's not what you have in an FBI case file. You have a thing that are called serials. Those are going to be the serialized documents, the evidence gathering, the information that you do from various different interviews, surveillance reports, take your pick, lab results, data coming back from various different subpoenas, financial records. Those are all called serials. They all go into a system called Sentinel. If this guy was really trying to confirm something that made sense, wouldn't you actually speak about the technical nature? I've read every serial in the file. That's what I tell you guys if you ask me about a case that I worked on. I read every serial in the file, boss, and here's what I've taken away. And you'd go, okay, is there anything about this? It's like, yeah, actually, there's an interview. There's a 302. Or, there's actually this, there's a serial in there that's an EC documenting the collection of this. I'm not going to give you the outrage that I have about it because that doesn't seem very useful. I'm going to do it to somebody who's better at outrage than me. And this is a friend of my show at this point because he's freaking hilarious. Here's Alex Jones telling you what he doesn't want you to do. Do not poop on the table, he said. And he's got some personal animosity about Dan Bongino that I didn't know about when I met him. But it is fun. So let me just play this. We might go a little long today because this is enjoyable for me too. Here we go.
Just don't sit there and tell us, oh, we've closed it. He acted alone. We have the files. Don't, if you're going to crap on me or piss on me, don't rub it in and don't tell me it's raining, okay? Please. Can you not, just as a PR issue, will you stop it, Kosh and Bongino? I know, obviously, Dan, nobody's smarter than you. But if you want to go from being very popular to very unpopular and thus hurt Trump as well, just keep going. Keep going, tough guy. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I'm getting angry. And it's very insulting to the American people to say Epstein killed himself. No one buys it. It's very insulting to say that brainwashed classic mind control operative acted alone. Please stop. The one that trained, where the federal law enforcement trained, all that, his cell phone all around the federal building in D.C., the FBI headquarters. Stop it. If you're not going to do anything about it, just shut up about it then.
You guys can't see, but behind the camera, I'm just over here cracking up. Alex is seriously one of the funniest people to sit on a stage with because even when they cut to break, he's just such a wild man. He doesn't ever stop being Alex Jones. I used to think like maybe that's just an act. Maybe he just turns that stuff on and he just acts that way. Nope. Alex Jones off camera is almost exactly the same as Alex Jones on camera. Alex Jones tired sounds exactly like Alex Jones riled up. It's really funny stuff. I'm playing my little my promo here. If you guys want to follow us over on Rumble and YouTube and on X and so on and so forth, we appreciate that. If you follow us over on Locals, you can do the same thing. Share it on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. That's just so good. Alex Jones makes me laugh. And so I'm cracking up about this stuff. But he's absolutely right, by the way. People are not buying this. It is not, broadly speaking, getting the traction that they hoped it would. Here's side by side Dan Bongino talking about Epstein, because that's a thing that people really get excited about. I actually tend to believe that Epstein may have killed himself with some, outside influence, in the same way I think that Thomas Crooks guy acted alone, as in on that day nobody was with him there. I think that's totally reasonable. But the idea that the people didn't nudge him along, or there weren't some, operatives working in a chat somewhere trying to encourage that's certainly plausible. And the way that his house was scrubbed and all the other stuff that came afterwards, why not do transparency? He's dead. He's dead. Start talking. Dispel the rumors. Don't say, I've been briefed on the file. Did you even read the damn file? Because that would have been day number one. I would have been like, oh, cool. I got deputy director access. Let's go ahead and get some files up here. I'm going to read a couple things that I want to know about. How about I search my own name inside Sentinel and find out what the FBI was doing, and the fact that the current deputy director of the FBI has his name all over the place. He used to tell you that he was being investigated by the Bureau. What did they investigate him for? Shouldn't that be front and center? Because he could talk about that. He's the DD, and so could Cash. Anyway, Dan told you not to let this case go. How funny is it that Dan, Podcast Dan, no longer agrees with Dash Bongino sitting in that interview? A lot of people don't believe it. Even people who like him. And they always caveat by being like, I'm friends with this guy, but like, what the hell is he doing?
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
It'd be one thing if these guys didn't talk about it all the time, but they did. And again, I get the feeling that people get into this job and they get told how to do the lie. I don't think people are being threatened in the same way you guys do. Why? Because I actually worked in those places. I don't think those kind of threats work on people that have enough money and power and access to the sitting president. Although Tucker did make a compelling argument that Richard Nixon was scared of the CIA director back when Nixon was on the tapes. What I do think is interesting is there's a way to tell the truth while you're not telling people the truth. It's that lie of omission. And I think it happens all the time. And it turns out it's like a really, really good tactic if you're working out in government. You say things like, I don't remember, or I don't recall. And it turns out that we know that you're lying. Because Jim Comey used to do it. And I used to watch. That was when I was first aware, like, this guy's full of crap. I know he knows more about that than he's letting on. You can say that Epstein killed himself, but like he killed himself because like he invited a guy to give a shot into his arm and then he like laid his neck into a thing or whatever. Like there's ways that you can kill yourself where you're the guy doing it, but you were coerced into it, you were threatened into it, you were extorted into it. You were shown like what would happen to your friends and family members who are now under surveillance. And we have, like you guys have all seen movies. You understand how this would work. It wouldn't be that hard to have a little conversation and let people know. By the way, we expect you to do this thing because the alternative is the thing that we explained to you would happen if you didn't. And you're like, oh, that's not suicide. It might be technically suicide, but it is a crime because you are now extorting somebody or blackmailing them. You're threatening them and coercing them into doing something they wouldn't otherwise done. Isn't that important? Isn't that relevant detail? Almost like it was brought up on the Tucker piece. Maybe I'll do the Tucker one here. This is Tucker talking to Sean Ryan, talking about they don't buy it. Then I'm going to show you something really funny about why they don't buy it, because the two guys that are in there made a career out of this thing. It was part of the reason why they thought they were going into that job, at least why the American people thought they were. Check this.
No matter who gets elected, the Epstein videos remain secret.
Wait, what are you talking about? I thought we could all sleep well at night now knowing that Epstein legitimately killed himself, right?
What was that?
Did that just come out?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide.
You know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself.
You weren't convinced by that?
No.
Why?
I've dug into that, and it's just so spooky. I mean, how do you charge a guy with sex trafficking when there's no end users that have been charged? Who did he traffic to?
What do you think that was?
What do I think it was?
Yeah.
I think it was a blackmail operation. What do you think it was?
I think it was a blackmail operation run by the CIA and the Israeli intel services, and probably others. French intelligence always has a hand in everything, I've noticed. Probably them too. The usual darkest forces in the world colluding to make rich and powerful people obey their agenda.
That checks out, doesn't it? Like, that sounds truly honest. Isn't that what honest people would say? Like, I don't know, wouldn't it be like the kind of person that would say, why do we need the right people inside that office? Why do we need the right people in there with the right attitude to know what the problem looks like? And then you'd be like, oh, well, do we know where the problem even lies? And then you'd have somebody ask it, like Glenn Beck, and then you'd have someone answer it, like the now current director of the FBI, about where this stuff and this information is. Remember, the story is not about like some guy who hung himself in a cell, which it is insulting to the American people in so much as only 16% of them believe you. So you've got 84% of the people, whether it's true or not, is completely irrelevant. The vast majority of all people in this country do not believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself without anything else. Okay? So you've got a high bar to overcome. That's a losing proposition without information. But the real question is, and you would be able to bypass all that scrutiny because people would be like, whatever, he's dead, move on. The real question is, who are the end users, as Sean Ryan points out? One of the things he says later on in the interview is that he went from being like a drug addict to being addicted to business. And so being in business means you need to know what is your product, who's buying it. It's why I obsess about like small little minutia about what we're doing over here. And it's nice to hear that other people did the same thing when they learned a new business. Jeffrey Epstein had a business. He had a legitimate business, supposedly, whatever that was, like about money. And then he had like this other thing that was going on. So who is the client? Because that's what people really want to see. The evil sons of bitches that were out there exploiting children and other women and involved in like basically modern day slavery. That's the question. And it turns out that was asked. And it turns out somebody claimed they knew the answer.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But
really?
Who? Oh. That is that. I mean, there's.
That's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
How does he know that?
Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. Yeah. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts. That's how they play the game. That's why you don't have a black book.
But the black book, it's not just sitting. I mean, that's Hoover power times 10.
And to me, that's a thing I think President Trump should run on. On day one, roll out the black book.
Okay. So you got in. Everybody got in where they wanted to be. He also goes on to talk about the declassification situation where they were going to have this rolling office of declassifying things nonstop. How come Steve Friend can't get his flipping personnel file from the FBI, which is not classified? He can't even get his own training records, people. Do you realize that? There's no difference there. And that's probably because no matter who you put in charge of the FBI, you get Jim Comey.
So what are your colleagues saying about this, that you're going to get out of the Hoover building?
We need a new headquarters very, very badly.
New headquarters proposal that we have.
This FBI is leaving the Hoover building.
He just gave up a big nugget.
For about a decade now, the FBI has been working on plans to move various functions and headcount to out of the National Capital Region.
If our people are going to be safe,
because this building is unsafe,
be effective, and if we're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money,
and being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars,
we got to get them all in a modern, safe, efficient FBI headquarters.
We're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that, and that's not this place.
And so there is a big sum asked for in our budget to support that.
We're always going to fight for our personnel and for as much money as we can get.
He just gave up a big nugget.
God, I hate the nugget thing. He's probably embarrassed about that, to be fair. So that's fair. Let me add this in to the discussion. I wanted to know what was unsafe about the Hoover building. Like, I've never heard why that was. I always thought it was about black mold or something, or like the building was like structurally unstable, which doesn't seem to be the case. And that's not true. The issue is they say that there's not an appropriate standoff for the current government regulations for buildings of that size. It doesn't have a big parking lot or a structure or a buffer zone that keeps the public away. So somebody could drive up and do something like a car bomb and devastate the Hoover building. That's what it's about. That's the safety argument. That's it. It needs more space. And there's nowhere in Washington, D.C. that would allow that, basically, and that's why they wanted to have this huge facility. The huge facility is about quote-unquote safety. There are also FBI field offices that are in the middle of major cities all over the place. I used to work at one. There's one in Albuquerque, and it's not that well stood off, although there's a little bit better standoff, and it's Albuquerque, so property is cheap. There's one in Washington, D.C., and you could drive up to the front door. You could literally drive up to the front door. You can get within a few feet of it, and it's all glass. Do they really think that somebody's going to come and car bomb the FBI like the way that they did? This is all legacy. We're throwing it back now to the Oklahoma City bombing, that they wanted to have a big standoff, a space, a buffer zone to protect these people. The crazy thing is that you've also heard that they're going to go out and crush violent crime. I just had somebody reach out to me today and let me know. It's real simple. They were going to crush violent crime, but they're going to do it by sending all the agents back to the field. The problem is the folks at headquarters that have been running the violent crime initiative that's been pushing out there, all of their time at headquarters ends in June. So you're going to send all those people away. They're no longer going to refill it. And the people that have been running the program that are FBI agents are no longer going to be running that program. So you're going to have a bunch of people that are called MAPAs. If Cash and Dan, if Dash Pongino were serious about fixing the FBI, they'd get rid of the MAPAs. That's a management analyst, program analyst or something, or management and program analyst. It's a position that doesn't need to exist. It's government for its own sake. It's a person that is essentially a walking, self-licking ice cream cone. They have a job because they need a job, and the job is they just do the job that keeps them in their job. The value to us is nothing. They're not FBI agents. They're not FBI analysts. They're people that just walk around and they get paid GS-15 salaries and they make six figures doing useless things that could never exist in the field. So they're all arguing not to leave the headquarters area because once they get to the field, there's no job for them. They would be fired because they wouldn't be able to answer Elon Musk's 5 things. And that's why when Elon put out the 5 things, it wasn't for everybody. It's not like if you're an FBI agent, you've done 5 things each day, even if they're lame and boring. I've done 10 hours of reading FISA. That's 5 things for the week. Easy, right? Read this FISA, read this FISA, read this FISA, updated this case file, had a meeting with my boss about it. 5 things in a day. But what if you're a MAPA and your job is basically sitting around on Facebook all day long and not doing the thing that you were paid to do, which is basically nobody knows? I had people that I told to do their job. I showed them it in their job description and I got yelled at for asking some female like junior support employee to do the thing she was paid to do, stand and feed 500 pages of financial records into a scanner so it would end up in my case file, and she didn't want to do it, and that's literally in her job description. Those are the people. And those are the people who are going to be running the Violent Crime Initiative. So just give it a few months, folks. I'm just telling you, it's out there. I've also got a video of another thing where I think it went wrong. And by the way, it happened the day that Cash got confirmed. I'm going to play it for you tomorrow. I'm holding on to it because it's a joke, but it is the most tone-deaf and poor taste joke that you will ever find. I think these guys, like, I don't think they're compromised, and I don't think I don't think they've been threatened. I think they just got comfortable doing a thing that they wanted to do, which is like they wanted a position in government. They wanted bona fides to run for office. So Dan's doing that. He's already making a ton of money. He still owns The Vince Show. He still owns Evita's show. He still owns whatever else, Bongino Report, all the other stuff that he had going on, his piece of Rumble and so on. They all still make money. Just telling you, none of these people like took a real hit. Cash made $2.6 million last year as a consultant. For what? What did he consult? And apparently he didn't know anything because he was still calling me, asking for questions answered about how in the hell do we fix the FBI? What would I brief Trump on if I was going to go do it? So the FBI is running the FBI again. The self-licking ice cream cone is undefeated. I'm going to show you something else because people want to say, oh, you're a Fed, you're working against it. The funniest thing is when you're a Fed and the people that you're arguing against now run the agency that you used to work at. So like what? I'm complaining about people that pay me? Is that what's going on? Because I do get the Fed argument still. This is Sean Ryan destroying the thing. And this is why if you make a Fed argument like, oh, you're still working for the former agency that threw you out or that you no longer work for, why I no longer credit you. Sean Ryan has about a 2-minute clip here. It's longer than normal. I'm going to play that, and then I'll give you something humorous to end on, which is Nancy Mace. That's what's humorous. Here we go.
What do you make of the claim that you're still working for CIA?
I think it's I mean, whatever. People are going to think what they think, but people don't understand how it works over there. And so, I mean, there's a part of me that understands it. I'm like, all right. Like, I didn't really come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, this guy just pops on the map and like fucking gets ginormous. And it's like, you didn't see all the back end work that it took to get here. And I started this in my attic as a one-man team and then taught my wife how to film, and it was me and her. And we only did 9 interviews for the first year and a half because I was editing sound, video, cutting previews, doing social media packages, doing distribution, doing the research, interviewing, you know, all of that stuff. And so, I mean, I think it's, you know, what really pisses me off is when somebody that I am paying attention to because they're bringing things out that I'm into, they're going down rabbit holes and conspiracy stuff that a lot of time winds up to be true. But then, and I think we're all on the same team, and then I'll see them throw something out like, Sean Ryan's a CIA shill. And it's like, dude, I was like totally fucking bought in on what you're bringing to the table and all of your research. It was like really good stuff, and I thought it was trustworthy. But when you throw something like that out there, you've just discredited yourself to me because you have no fucking proof, because I'm not one. That's right. And now I don't believe anything that you say, because if you're just going to loose lip throw shit out there like that, then what else are you fucking throwing out that you have not totally verified?
Fair. I've had similar experiences.
Yeah.
What other sort of casual, lazy associations? I had one yesterday. Someone said, you were at Mar-a-Lago, which I've been there one time doing the police state promo, and I was the MC, and I was surrounded by my guys the entire time, and they said, you cornered a J6er. I was like, I don't even know what that means. And they made allegations that I was somehow like engaging women behind my wife's back, which is hilarious because I read the allegation to my wife out loud. I'm like, these people are insane. So if you're that lazy and slanderous and saying libelous things, you've discredited yourself completely. That's why Julie Kelly has no credibility with whatsoever. She should know better, and she did exactly what Sean just said there. It's like, you're a fool. And when you make all these weak allegations like the FBI is behind it, the CIA is behind it, and you've never worked there, and you've never paid an FBI source, which Dan's never done, I'm sure. You've never recruited an FBI source. You've never debriefed an FBI source. You've never admonished an FBI source. You never had to terminate an FBI source because they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. You've never had to coax them off the ledge because they were terrified and they didn't want to report to you anymore. sort of convert them, recruit them. If you've never done any of those things, what the hell are you talking about? Like, get out of our faces with this stuff. It's sad. Luckily, we've got really serious people in Congress, so I'm going to end with this. This is funny only because Nancy Mace is a walking meme, and I don't know why. This is the other example. Republicans are not conservatives because we have this lady representing, hold on, let me just start with it. Let me start with the headline so you guys understand where we're going here. Nancy Mace shows nude photo of herself in the House hearing as she says it was recorded without her consent, and because no one has ever seen it before, as it was recorded without her consent, she let you all got to see it. By the way, it wasn't that spicy or exciting. It was like a nude silhouette of her, which is basically what she does in every single picture she does on all her social media and Instagram. So let's do nude Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace. I don't know Nancy Mace. Yes, Nancy Mace. Here she is doing like a look at me routine.
Today in my hearing, I'm going to dissect what that guy did to dozens of women hidden on a hidden camera and other devices as he recorded them with impunity, without their knowledge, without their permission, and without their consent. Patrick Bryant, I hope you're ready. I'm also going to be sharing some of the imagery that Patrick Bryant, that guy right there, took of myself and other women without our knowledge, without our permission, without our consent. Naked bodies, women's legs spread apart, different genital areas. And he had a catalog almost, I think, these different fetishes of what types of videos and photos he liked to capture of women without their knowledge. I'll go over that too.
Do you guys know how gross it is? Because the story is that she's going to be defended by the United States Attorney's Office because she's a congressperson and she apparently has the immunity to say whatever crazy stuff she wants like that under the speech and debate clause. And so the DOJ is going to protect her from her former fiance. That's a guy that she was romantically involved with for 2 years or more. She's literally doing this meme. This is the meme. The meme is photographing something you want to show everyone. Men, we show you the object. Women, they put their boobs in front of the object. Period. You don't think I'm serious about this? I am so serious. This is the meme. This is Nancy Mace over the meme showing you what a beautiful day it is that she's walking out there. There she is. She's standing there in some midriff top, boobs in front of the thing she's trying to show you. Because look at me and boobs. I appreciate boobs as much as the next guy. I'm a regular human being. I'm a red-blooded American male, but this stuff makes me cringe. Like, you can smell the crazy through the camera. Stop with this stuff. And the idea that DOJ is spending their money on that's another sort of bad indicator. Again, Republicans, not conservatives. There's some overlap, but certainly not enough. You want to talk about something that is conservative? Let's go ahead and end with something fun. How about teach your kids how to be men, accept them for who they are, and then fix them in the world so they go out and they can conquer and be triumphant. This is a comedian who's a dwarf, which I think is fantastic. His little story here is great. Sorry, there's no real boobs to be shown. That's not what we do here anyhow. Let's do a palate cleanse here and just laugh about something. Train your kids for the kid that they are, not the kid that you thought they might be before you ever had any kids, because reality is always more interesting. This is, I'll have to look his name up. I know it's Brad something or other. Check this out.
And there's no dwarves in my family at all. I am the only one, so they weren't expecting it. So, like, my dad is this really athletic dude, tall athletic dude, and he thought his wife was gonna give birth to a football player. Instead, she shot out a football. And you gotta ask yourself, what would you do in that situation? What would you do if you found out your child was a little bit different? He wasn't gonna be like all the other kids. What would you do? How would you react if you knew for a fact your son was guaranteed to be bullied when he got to school? Hopefully, you do what my dad did. He bullied me first. But he did it in a very awesome way. He would make fun of me and he would tell me like, all right, hit me back. Hit me back with something. That's what you're gonna do. Some kid's gonna come up to you. He's gonna make fun of you. What are you gonna do? You gonna cry about it? No, not my son. You're gonna make him regret saying that to you. You're gonna make him cry about it. That's what you're gonna do. So he molded me. He trained me. He prepared me like Yoda and Luke Skywalker. The sizes were reversed, but you get the idea. So by the time I got to kindergarten, I was a trained verbal assassin. I walked into kindergarten with some swag like, I hope someone f***s with me today. And someone did. Someone did f*** with me. I will never forget this. First day of school, we're all lined up, right? And we're taking roll. This kid runs out of line in front of the entire class, runs right up to me, points his finger in my face and goes, ha ha, you're little. I looked at him and went, ha ha, your mom doesn't live with your dad anymore. Tears, tears. understand. I live in California. I had a 50-50 shot at getting that one right. So he starts crying. I get sent to the principal's office. I'm sitting there in the office. It's me, it's the principal, it's the kid. Kid's still crying because he's a bitch. And then the principal looks at me and goes, I can't believe you made him cry. I'm calling your father. Do it. All right, I'll do it. So he gets the phone out. He calls my dad, gets my dad out of work, and says, Mr. Williams, I'm here with your son Brad. He's in my office today because he made another little boy cry at school. What do you have to say about that? Here's what my dad said. He goes, did he start it or did he finish it? Yeah. Did you start it or did you finish it? Because you're never, ever, ever supposed to start a fight. But if you're in one, you better damn well finish that thing. That's the rule. If you start a fight, you're an asshole. If you finish it, you're a goddamn hero. That's the difference. So my dad says that to him, and the principal goes, well, to be honest with you, he finished it. Then my dad says this on the speakerphone. He goes, well, problem with your school is not my son. Problem with your school is the other kid's a pussy. Click. And I'm dancing around the office. That's my dad. That's my dad. And then I looked at the other kid. I'm like, you see, that's what a father does. You would have no idea what a father does.
Boom. Absolutely brutal. His name is Brad Williams. You guys probably have seen him before. He's been in a lot of different movies. He's very funny. And that's the way that you take something that's tough, because we all get dealt different hands, and then you go do something good with it. So that's just a good little way to feel good about it. If you're a dad out there, train the kid you have, not the kid you want to have or that you thought you were going to have. My kid does some really weird stuff. So yesterday we went and did some drown proofing, but his way. We did it by making him count numbers and fingers underwater. And I distracted him enough to spend his face in the water because I was a water guy. He's not really into that. He's kind of like a wet cat. We're going to do the thing we got to do. Anyhow, that's it. I appreciate you guys today. We went extra long. I hope that's cool. Again, make sure you guys are liking the video over on Rumble and you're joining us in the live chat, as many of you are. I get to see all of your reactions during the show. I see the same thing over for those of you on YouTube. Again, it's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. The YouTube is youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Thanks to all of you over there that have joined the program. We have now crossed over 10,000 followers or subscribers, as they call it there. Awesome. Locals, you guys can always support the program there and be part of the conversation. It's KyleSeraphin.com. I keep it real simple. It's not complicated. And lastly, if you want to share the show on Spotify, where you can see video and audio, it's KyleSeraphinShow.com. Thanks for sticking with me for all this. God bless all of you. I hope you have a fantastic day. We're having one. And I don't know if I'm going to do it tomorrow or the next day, but I'm telling you, it took me 5 days to find a video clip that I was looking for. And it is truly upsetting. When you guys see it, I think you're going to see the same thing that I saw. It happened the same day that Kash Patel was confirmed. It's why I've not been feeling good about this guy going in there and why my enthusiasm has waned dramatically. Not the only one. So we're going to keep going. We're going to hold these people feet to the fire. We're going to keep calling them out where they need to be called out. We don't fall in love with politicians. We're trying to find some outcomes for America. All right. God bless you. Have a great day. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.